Open world games, they're the new hotness, aren't they? Everything. Grand Theft Auto, Metal Gear Solid, hey, even the world outside your window is an open world. And these days, video games, they just have to be open world in order to captivate audiences. If your world isn't open enough, your game's shit. If your world isn't worldy enough, then your game is shit. But what is an open world game? Well, I suppose if you take it to mean just being able to explore the environment that's presented to you freely and in a non-linear fashion, then Asteroids is an open world game, kind of, just like the smallest open world that there is. Elite might be one example of what we would deem today as an open world game, but that's an entire universe, and it's not as structured as open world games of today tend to be. Let's see, I think probably the earliest progenitor of the open world video game, especially in 3D, was a little obscure title called Hunter on the Amiga. Hunter was developed by a guy called Paul Holmes for Activision, and well, if you haven't heard of it, well, that's probably because Activision were trading under the title Mediagenic back in 1991 when Hunter was released, and Mediagenic were about to dive off a cliff into liquidation, which meant Activision went through a period of, well, absolute radio silence until your old fella Bobby Kotick revived the company in 1992. So that kind of meant Hunter sank without much of a trace, which is weird because if you look at most open world games today, perhaps not just Grand Theft Auto, but if you look at games like Far Cry and Crysis and Body Harvest, weirdly, then most of that comes from Hunter, and let me show you why. Load Hunter up and you're given a choice of 3 different game modes between Hunter, Mission, and Action. They determine your starting point on the map and your objectives. Hunter mode and Action mode are probably the best places to start, so naturally, let's kick things off with Mission mode. Name duly entered and you're giving a briefing because, well, it's just not cricket to go out into a mission without briefs. You're given one simple objective and then you are, wow, placed right into an open world of sorts. Very, very low poly, as is the restrictions of the time, but it's incredible to think that this is all being produced on Amiga 500 or on Atari ST, and with nothing in the way of load times either, all off one floppy disk, which is quite remarkable. Here, well, basically the first thing you have to do is go into the hut next to your HQ. This is very, very important because if you don't, you won't get the essential and things that you need. The logbook, a radar unit, a clock, a fuel can. The clock, without it, there's a time limit on each of these missions, and if you don't have a clock, you don't know what time it is. The logbook will let you know where the fuel dump is that you can destroy it, as well as where a shop is, which is quite handy because you can buy all kinds of things at the Ally shop. But clock duly equipped, you can then head to your objective any way you want. If you want to take this boat because that's what's closest, then that's what you go for, and off you go. If you're not the seafaring type, you can just hit space to hop out your boat and swim around, but you've got to be careful of fatigue and also sharks. So really the only real way to go is to hop into a helicopter. It's all controlled really, really simply, just with a few presses of the keyboard and an accidental press of the fire button, meaning you blow up your boat and your own base, and then you lose points. There's a point system involved here, where if you blow up with it what the game wants you to blow up, then you get points, and without it you lose points, and those points or credits can be spent at the shop. But yeah, the thing is, you can approach your objective further north here on the map any way you want. If you want to fly there, that's fine. If you want to fly to only a little bit of distance out and then get the drop on the enemy by, say, just jumping out your helicopter, then have at it. It's all kind of up to you, which is remarkable for the era, and definitely rings true of more modern open world third person 3D adventure things. It's really quite awesome to have this freedom of movement. Eventually, though, you will be set on by some enemies who are defending their little fuel dump, and you'll begin to realize how sparsely populated the world is. This is really down to the constraints of the 3D engine at the time, which apparently could only handle 2 characters on screen at once. So you're never really going to be set on too much. And what's nice is you can always talk to your enemies first. He's not too happy to see me. You must die, scum. What a horrible person. In the face of really rather dodgy shooting controls, it's probably always best to walk away from a conflict and just lob grenades at your objectives here and see that fuel dump explode in a pretty stream of red and orange triangles. But hey, if you don't want to take the land approach, why not take out the rest of your objectives by sea, just boating around and shooting them with your rockets? That does the job too. Whichever route you choose though, if you're playing in mission mode, you really have to book it and not dilly-dally around, because there's tight time limits on everything you do, especially in the mission mode in Hunter. You have to complete your objectives and then return back to base, proud and triumphant, knowing that you've done everything that was required of you until you get, well, the next set of objectives. You're now required to do mission 2. It's not a choice. You're in this now. Destroy a radar unit and a comms hut, but now you've got to do it all before 1 o'clock the next day. You only got a little bit of time allotted to you each time. It's kind of like an arcade-style racing game where you pass through a checkpoint, you've got a little bit more time to do it, and then you've got to rush on to the next thing. So, I don't know, hop on your bicycle and get going and rush and rush and rush. So, mission mode is a little bit stressful in Hunter, and probably not the best way to start off the game, but it's really cool to come back to after you're fully aware of the map and know which way to go. It's a really nice little challenge. So you go on to the other 2 modes, Hunter mode and Action mode. Action, where you have a big checklist of different things to blow up and a week in-game to do it in, and Hunter, where you just have the one ominous looming goal of defeating an enemy general and bringing back his head within a time limit. Whichever you choose, you likely won't get that much done because you've got the freedom of time, then you're just more likely to get distracted and steal helicopters and steal tanks and do kind of what you're supposed to do, like go shopping and talk to informants for information and goods, and then kind of do what you're not supposed to do, like blow up the building that they're in, and just generally run around and have fun and just find it remarkable that this is still really enjoyable and holds up really, really well. 23 years after release, it's just phenomenal fun to just run around and get lost in this kind of weird alien world. It's a bizarre place, partly because of the technical restrictions I mentioned earlier and the fact that there's not really anybody else on the screen at the same time. Most of the time it is just you. And there's a guy on a hang glider, and a guy in a house, and a guy in a church. And when you do come across the enemy, they're oddly polite, they're oddly gentlemanly. I don't know whether that's a technical thing or whether it's AI, but if you come across a guy in a tank, the tank won't destroy you. He won't do anything unless you get in a tank as well. Then it's a level playing field and he'll blow you up. In fact, if you come across most enemy soldiers, especially in Hunter mode, they don't really do anything to you. I mean, it calls them an enemy soldier, but you talk to them and they just kind of say, what you doing here? And then you kill them and you get points and you feel bad about it, though. And there's a weird sense of morality to this. You can kill chickens and rabbits and lose points, and you can blow up bungalows and lose points for that as well, regardless whether they're set next to enemy installations, because, collateral damage it wants to restrict, but these enemies, they're not really doing anything, and it just feels very stark, very bizarre, very alien, and you feel kind of guilty for doing what you're supposed to be doing, and I get the feeling that Paul Holmes kind of knew that this was a little bit weird, and baked all kinds of weird things into the game. Like there's a submarine which you can see in the water, but you will never be able to handle. There's bizarre hidden guys in the game, hidden informants, three men, I believe. And I managed to find the third man, and then I accidentally thought that he was bad, so I killed him, and then I lost points for that. You can go into a crypt and find death there, just hanging out. It's a weird, unsettling experience, but it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to explore. And if you really want to trace back the roots of open world gaming, then you should start with Hunter and just marvel at this panoramic vista spread out before you. Or actually just watch footage of me getting eaten by a shark. Chris Trump for CoachUpop.com. Stay tuned for a full written feature on Hunter. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Bye.